Hey, this is going to be a final wrap of my Earthbox videos that I've been doing over the course of the season. You know, if you go back and look through my videos, you'll see that I've kind of documented all my experiences with these Earthboxes. The pros and cons, the issues I had, how I overcame some things, how some issues were really not big issues to be after all. But anyway, this is going to be a very interesting video, and I promise you, you're going to learn some things. I know I have. What I've done is I've taken all my fencing and poles and everything. I cut the stems off so I could take the Earthbox and carry it. One other thing that I did is I let the Earthboxes dry out. I quit watering them when I knew I was going to pull and be done with my Earthboxes. I just let them dry out, because when these things are saturated and full of water, they're heavy. And even for a good, strong grown man, they're heavy. I mean, they weigh quite a bit. You need to let them dry out, man, they're half as heavy, and you can kind of haul them around. You need to take them around and, you know, want to dump the soil. You're not dealing with muddy, mucky soil. So that's one tip. Let's take a look at some more interesting stuff. Let's take a look at these roots, the root system here. Let's see what we got. How, you know, what's happening inside this Earthbox during the season, you know. And so I'm going to reposition the camera, and we're going to take one of these apart. Okay, what you see here, I've got my dump trailer and an Earthbox sitting up in it. This soil that you see in the bottom is the same type of soil that's in the Earthboxes pretty much. It's soil that I had in just some separate containers that I was growing tomatoes and things in, and I've already dumped that out. I believe in saving some of this stuff. I didn't see any disease in any of the, you know, if there's anything that's disease prone or looked disease or had disease, I will dump that soil and I will dump those plants down in the woods. I won't use it. I won't put it in my compost or anything. That's what you're seeing in the bottom there, is just some of some soil from a couple of pots that I had that grew nice plants that were healthy, and I'm going to save sleep. I mean, the soil is expensive. Now remember that I let this dry out. So, you know, this is dried out soil here. But it makes it really easy to pull it out. Okay? And look at that. That's all. If you can see here, this is where that water reservoir shelf is. Your soil sits on top of that. Well, the roots, you can tell how the roots have gone down actually into the bottom into the reservoir. And they're all fine roots. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Now, if we can, I'm going to try. Let's get this out of the way and see what kind of a root system one of these are full-grown tomatoes we had here. I'm going to pull that off. That's all the root that was sitting in water all the time. That's interesting. Okay. And I'm seeing here that already okay, there's my fertilizer log that I used with the pantyhose. That makes it nice and simple. That's why I said if your box ever falls over or something happens, and it dumps soil all over the ground, your fertilizer is going to be laying on the ground in a log, in pantyhose. So you haven't lost it all. You can take your fertilizer log, put some soil back in, a little lime, put your log back in, and you're set back up. So this is a great idea. It really is. And as you can see, the roots actually have grown into the pantyhose. Plant is actually tapping into the fertilizer, pure fertilizer log. That's interesting. I like that blows my mind. I figured they'd be repelled because this would be so acidic. But actually, the roots have grown into the fertilizer log. So that's interesting. All right. what I'm seeing here, let's see, is a lot of small root growth. I'm not seeing big giant taproots. So that's something I noticed that's different about these plants that are grown in the earth boxes. They grow a lot of these fine hair roots because it's not very deep. So they just take these fine hair roots and they're just growing all over with these fine hair roots. Well, I guess it makes sense because the plant's not having to grow deep with a big deep root deep into the ground trying to find water. I mean, there's always water. So the plant is never worried about it. It's just going to grow fine roots that are picking up food or water, minerals. It doesn't need to worry about big taproots trying to suck water up deep in the soil. I was expecting to see some really big fat roots just growing through the box. But you know, now that I think about it and see this, it doesn't need that because the soil is always, it's not having to search for water. So it's not going to be putting out big fat water seeking roots. It's not uncommon when I grow plants in my boxes and stuff to have an 18-inch or more big set of roots coming out, and they're looking for water. In the earth box, it looks like they just kind of don't worry about growing those big fat roots. When I transplanted my tomatoes in these boxes, they had a root system about that long. I mean, they almost went down to the bottom of where the water reservoir was, and they were pretty fat, but they never really did much beyond that to just grow those hairs. Show you what an underwatered plant looks like. This is a plant that was in a box in one of my grow boxes, or not my grow boxes, but in my raised beds. And I didn't water it a lot like I should have. You know, I'd pour a gallon of water in every few days and stuff. So everything stayed near the surface, as you can see here. There's some big water-seeking roots. But because I wasn't using drip irrigation or anything that waters that soil nice and deep, most of the roots stayed near the top. They stayed near the top of the soil. That's not really what you want in a typical situation. You want deep, good, thick roots. The roots are everything. They're the foundation, the strength of that plant. The deeper you can water, the better. The longer these and fatter these roots get, the better. You know, this Earthbox system is just totally different. I mean, it just sends out hairy roots. You got a few long strands of roots, but that's how these Earthboxes are. These plants are totally different in the Earthbox. This is a plant that was essentially in ground, but it didn't really get the water it needed, so everything always stayed near the top of the soil, and it dried out quick, and it needed water. That just shows the importance of really watering deep and getting those roots as deep as you can. And this is a beefsteak tomato. That's not really an impressive root system for a big beefsteak tomato. And this is just something totally different with these earth boxes. I mean, it's all little feeder roots. There's a lot of options you can go with these earth boxes at this point. Okay, you've got your soil, and people will say, well, should I reuse the soil? Should I leave it in there? Should I take some of it out? Well, those are all options, and they all work in different ways. I'm not as versed enough to know what's the best way. What a lot of people will claim, though, is that if you leave the soil in the box and just scrape the top of it, get your fertilizer out, your fertilizer strip, or if you just put fertilizer in there, dig it out, the old fertilizer, and dig it down. You know, take maybe a third or fourth of the soil out of the top of it, and then leave the rest. And then the following year, replenish it, put a little more dolomite lime, and then put your fertilizer in. A lot of people swear by that because the dolomite lime, or any lime, it takes a long time to really get to a point where the plant takes it in, and it seems to work better the second year. People report that they have much less trouble with blossom end rot and stuff like that, because the lime has broken down so much by that second season that the plant is being able to take it in easily. And I would say that most people say that works, you know, better and more successfully than dumping your box out and restarting again the following year with new soil and new dolomite lime and all that kind of stuff. So I would recommend, personally, what I'm going to do is I'm going to dump all my soil out of the boxes and clean them up, but I'm going to save this soil, and I'm going to mix a lot of this with some fresh stuff, a little more lime, and then do my fertilizer strip and all that. So I'm going to use the soil from the boxes itself, because they are, there's so much dolomite lime. If you go by what they want you to put in it, or what they send you if you buy the kit, I mean, it's a pretty good sized bag of lime. That is more than enough lime for plants for 2 or 3 years. I mean, it's a 2 or 3 year supply of lime. And I guess they think that, well, if you put so much in it, it'll help with that blossom end rot. Well, that's really not how it works. The stuff has to break down. It has to break down into something that the plants can really take in easily. So I think it would be beneficial to do at least like something I'm going to do. I'm going to save all my soil from my earth boxes. I'm going to keep it in some totes, or just whatever, however I can keep it, you know, or where I can store it. And I'm going to use a majority of that for my soil. And it's got all this root matter in it and all that. That's just better. I mean, that's just going to help it that much more to loosen it up. And then I'm going to add maybe a bag, or half a bag, or whatever, of new soil, a little bit of lime, and do my fertilizer, and try this again next year, and we'll see. So anyway, this is the final video, my wrap up of the earth boxes. I was really interested in seeing. I've been interested the whole year in seeing what the root system looks like. What's it doing under that soil? And now I see. It's just a totally different root system than what you would expect from a big tomato. You know, with a big tomato, you typically have those big fat roots. You have a lot of hair, but you have these big fat roots that are seeking out water. And you don't need that in an earth box. It stays water constantly. So I hope you guys found that interesting and learned a little bit about maybe watering and how important it is when you water to water deep as you can into that soil, because the roots to get the big deep roots, that's what makes that plant strong and disease resistant and just healthy. It's all about those roots. That's a foundation. You know, if you got a sprinkler set up, or you did like I did with that one plant that I showed you, this one here, and just water a gallon or two a week or so, it soaks down in, but it only soaks about that far into the soil, really. So the roots just stay there, and really, it didn't make it for a strong plant. I mean, the key, drip irrigation is absolutely the best way to go, because it just drips and soaks, and it gets down deep in that soil, and that's where you're really going to have success with your big, healthy plants. You know, I mean, and there's some people out there that have a green thumb that could grow anything on a rock. But generally speaking, the deeper you can water, that really is a huge part of growing big, healthy plants, is getting water deep and making that plant dig deep to get that water. You know, if you keep watering lightly and just saturating the top area of the soil, the plant will grow no deeper than that. It'll never be big, strong, and healthy. It might be a good plant and serve you well, but it's not going to be optimal. So there you go. Of course, these are just my opinions. You guys take it for what you think. But there you go. That's my final Earthbox video with a few little tips added in, or opinions.